Okay. Defendant's invocation of the Fifth Amendment. Go ahead.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. The village calls Mr. Travis Hines to the stand.
I plead the
Judge San-
Fifth.
Judge Sanfilippo. Mr. Hines, this is a civil case, not a criminal case. While you have the right to testify and the right to remain silent, I want to make you aware that an adverse inference may be drawn from your refusal to answer questions. Unlike a criminal trial, where silence cannot be used against you, in a civil trial, I am permitted to make an inference based on your refusal to testify. Do you understand this?
I was not prepared to testify. I just assume I should plead the Fifth, as I would in a criminal trial.
Judge Sanfilippo. Again, Mr. Hines, this is not a criminal trial. I will swear you in, and then you may decide how to respond to each question. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Judge Sanfilippo. Please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure. Travis Hines. TravisHeinze.
Judge Sanfilippo. Mr. Schultz, you may proceed with questioning.
Cross-examination by prosecution.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Hines. How are you today?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and decline to testify in this case. While this trial is categorized as a civil matter, it is directly connected to a criminal case, and my testimony could potentially be used against me in a criminal proceeding. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld that individuals can assert the Fifth Amendment in civil cases where there is a reasonable possibility of self-incrimination. I assert my constitutional right and respectfully decline to answer any questions that may expose me to legal jeopardy.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Your Honor, I don't believe my question exposed Mr. Hines to any legal jeopardy. I ask that he answer factual questions related to this case. Judge Sanfilippo. Mr. Hines, you are entitled to invoke the Fifth Amendment, but you may still be required to answer questions that do not incriminate you. At the very least, you should hear the questions before invoking your rights. Mr. Schultz, proceed with your questions.
Prosecution continues questioning.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Mr. Hines, are you currently employed?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Do you recall an incident in West Milwaukee on May 25th, 2024, when you were issued citations by the West Milwaukee Police Department?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Do you recall an incident in West Milwaukee on May 25th, 2024, when you were issued citations by the West Milwaukee Police Department?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Do you recall an incident in West Milwaukee on May 25th, 2024, when you were issued citations by the West Milwaukee Police Department?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Do you recall what led to the issuance of those citations?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I plead the Fifth.
Judge Sanfilippo. Mr. Hines, I want to reiterate that this is a civil case. If you choose to remain silent, I may consider that silence in my determination of the facts. You are not compelled to answer, but refusing to do so can lead to inferences drawn from your silence. Mr. Schultz, you may continue.
Prosecution continues cross-examination.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Mr. Hines, do you document your encounters with law enforcement on your YouTube channel?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Mr. Hines, do you document your encounters with law enforcement on your YouTube channel?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Mr. Hines, do you document your encounters with law enforcement on your YouTube channel?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Have you had similar encounters with law enforcement prior to and after May 25th, 2024?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Did you videotape the incident that happened in West Milwaukee on May 25th, 2024?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Did you videotape the incident that happened in West Milwaukee on May 25th, 2024?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Did you post that video to your YouTube channel?
I plead the Fifth.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Judge Sanfilippo. Mr. Hines, if you want this video admitted into evidence, you may need to testify about it.
Screen sharing of YouTube content.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Judge, I'm going to attempt some screen sharing. May I have permission to share my screen?
Okay, Judge Sanfilippo says,
Judge Sanfilippo. Mr. Hines, is this the video that you have motioned to admit into evidence?
what? Can you read the part where she says, "1 moment, try now"?
Sure. Judge Sanfilippo. 1 moment. Try now.
Okay, now read Chris Schultz.
Prosecutor Chris Schultz. Thank you. Judge, can you see my screen?
Can you read their parts without saying their name?
Sure. Judge. 1 moment. Try now. Prosecutor. Thank you. Judge, can you see my screen?
Judge says I can.
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, do you recognize what I have displayed on the screen right now?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. If I read this correctly, it says Louisiana versus Travis Hines. Did I read that correctly?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Do you see under my cursor where it says has exchanged IDs?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Can you see my screen?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Is your computer working properly?
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I can see it, sure.
Prosecutor. Do you see where it scrolled down to a section titled Created Playlists?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. The first playlist is titled West Milwaukee Arrest, Wisconsin. Did I read that correctly?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. The second is titled Outagamie Sheriff, Wisconsin Problem. Did I read that correctly?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. The third is titled McCracken County, Kentucky Problems. Did I read that correctly?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. The fourth is titled Illinois Cop Stops. Did I read that correctly?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Are these all videos that you created and posted, Mr. Hines?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Do you recognize what I have on the screen currently?
Let's see. Okay, yes.
Prosecutor. Is this your GoPro video?
I plead the fifth.
Judge. Mr. Hines, if you want this video admitted into evidence, you may need to testify about it.
Can you go back to the prosecutor saying the first thing?
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, is this the video that you have motioned to admit into evidence?
No, it's the part where he says, "Mr. Hines, you are the proponent of this evidence."
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, you are the proponent of this evidence. I would ask the court to direct Mr. Hines to answer the question.
Okay, judge, then read the judge.
Judge. Mr. Hines, if you want this video admitted into evidence, you may need to testify about it.
Okay, now the prosecutor.
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, is this the video that you have motioned to admit into evidence?
Do I have to answer that?
Judge. If you are asking the court to admit this video into evidence, you may need to confirm that it is indeed the video you recorded. Otherwise, I cannot verify its authenticity.
Well, that's a different format. There are other formats for the GoPro video. The footage doesn't just exist on YouTube. It could be edited. YouTube is used for humor, not for legal proceedings.
Judge. If the video is the same footage, then I expect it to be authenticated. If you refuse to answer, I may not admit it.
I object to this being considered the same.
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, are you currently subject to any criminal prosecution arising from the incident on May 25th, 2024 in West Milwaukee?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Your Honor, I will now play the video for the record. It is 13 minutes and 35 seconds long. I will also confirm that Officer Aide can see it. Officer Aide, can you see the video?
All right, let's skip over And read the judge.
Judge, we have now viewed the video evidence. Mr. Schultz, any comments before we proceed?
Okay, prosecutor.
Prosecutor, Your Honor, I believe the video speaks for itself. It confirms that Mr. Hines was in the parking lot after hours, refused to provide identification, and engaged in what could be considered obstructive behavior.
Okay, judge.
Judge, noted. Mr. Hines, do you wish to challenge the authenticity or content of this video?
I plead the fifth.
Judge, very well. Mr. Schultz, you may proceed with further questions or present your next piece of evidence.
Okay. Prosecutor.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, is this your GoPro video?
No, the top one, the top prosecutor.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, you are the proponent of this evidence. I would ask the court to direct Mr. Hines to answer the question.
This, what you see on the screen right now.
Judge, Mr. Hines, if you want this video admitted into evidence, you may need to testify about it.
Start with the prosecutor. It says, Your Honor, I am going to stop the video.
Prosecutor, Your Honor, I am going to stop the video at the 6-minute and 40-second mark.
Objection. The video is being stopped prematurely. This is prejudicial.
Judge, Mr. Hines, this is Mr. Schultz's case. He may enter into evidence what he believes is relevant. You will have an opportunity to introduce your own evidence later.
Prosecutor.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, is this your GoPro video?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor,
Go ahead.
Prosecutor, do you see on the screen where
It says,
Prosec-
did you post that video to YouTube?
Prosecutor, does YouTube provide you with any financial compensation, Mr. Hines?
The prosecutor part where it says, did you post that video to YouTube?
Prosecutor, did you post that video to YouTube?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor, do you see here on the screen where it says 36,000 views?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor, does YouTube provide you with any financial compensation, Mr. Hines?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor, how much money did YouTube pay you in relation to this video?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, in the video you mentioned that you wanted to dispel suspicion. Do you think that refusing to provide identification made you more or less suspicious to the office?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, where do you currently reside?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor, are you concerned that answering that question would incriminate you?
I plead the fifth.
Judge, Mr. Hines, you may answer the question.
No, I plead the fifth, and then prosecutor.
Prosecutor, do you live in your car, Mr. Hines?
Objection. That's argumentative.
Judge, overruled. Mr. Hines, you may answer the question.
But the prosecutor says something.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, you mentioned Walmart in the video. Did you hear yourself say that?
Go up one.
Prosecutor, are you concerned that answering that question would incriminate you?
I said objection. That is argumentative. Read prosecutor.
Prosecutor, it's a yes or no question, Mr. Hines.
No, judge.
Judge, Mr. Hines, you may answer the question.
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor, could you hear the audio of the video we just watched?
Okay, this top prosecutor here.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, you were eventually issued citations by the West Milwaukee Police Department officers in that video. Is that correct?
The top one, where it says you mentioned Walmart in the video.
Prosecutor, Mr. Hines, you mentioned Walmart in the video. Did you hear yourself say that?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Well, we all heard it. Why did you mention Walmart?
Okay, I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Could you hear the audio of the video we just watched?
Now the next one is, are you aware that Walmart allows?
Prosecutor. Are you aware that Walmart allows people to sleep in their cars?
Objection calls for speculation.
Judge. Overruled. He may answer the question.
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, as someone who lives in his car, are you aware of how to find places where overnight parking is permitted?
Objection, this introduces information that is not in evidence.
Judge. Overruled. Mr. Hines, you may answer the question.
But, what did the prosecutor say?
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, you were eventually issued citations by the
But, what did the prosecutor say after I said, objection, this introduces information that is not in evidence?
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, you were eventually issued citations by the West Milwaukee Police Department officers in that video. Is that correct?
You just skipped over 3 parts.
My apologies for the confusion. Let's go back to where we left off. Prosecutor, are you aware that Walmart allows people to sleep in their cars?
Read Your Honor, Mr. Hines cannot refuse to answer whether he lives in his car.
Prosecutor. Your Honor, Mr. Hines cannot refuse to answer whether he lives in his car, and then object when I ask about information that assumes he does not.
And then read the judge.
Judge. Overruled. Mr. Hines, you may answer the question.
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Mr. Hines, you were eventually issued citations by the West Milwaukee Police Department officers in that video. Is that correct?
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Is that video a true and correct depiction of what took place in the Target parking lot on May 25th, 2024?
Objection, leading question.
Judge. Overruled. Mr. Hines, you may answer the question.
I plead the fifth.
Prosecutor. Judge, I don't think I have any further questions for Mr. Hines at this time.
However,
Prosecutor. However, if he wishes to cross-examine himself, I'm not sure how useful that would be, given that he has refused to answer any questions.
continue.
Prosecutor. I ask the court to draw a negative inference from Mr. Hines's refusal to provide any testimony. His complete lack of answers to relevant questions should be considered obstructive in nature.
What did the judge say after I objected that is improper? What did the judge say?
Judge. Mr. Hines, I need you to refrain from interrupting. Let Mr. Schultz finish his statement before you make an objection. Mr. Schultz, can you repeat the last part of your... Judge. Mr. Hines, I need you to refrain from interrupting. Let Mr. Schultz finish his statement before you make an objection. Mr. Schultz, can you repeat the last part of your statement?